Hello, and welcome to our presentation from Butchertown Clinical Trials on presbyopia and how we manage presbyopia clinical trials here at Butchertown Clinical Trials. My name is Mark Prussian, and I am co-founder of Butchertown Clinical Trials, and I serve as the Chief Executive Officer. Our presentation will talk to you about how we manage clinical trials, such as current ambulatory indications for things like presbyopia, and how we handle up to 25 trials at one time, including currently 5 for presbyopia. I have a few housekeeping points before we begin. This entire seminar will last no longer than 30 minutes. We will use the Q&A button chat to ask questions. And if we hit the 30-minute mark and there are further questions, we will get back to you, because we have your email, within 24 to 48 hours. But we do hope that you will ask questions during our live presentation. So again, my name is Mark Prussian, and I run Butchertown Clinical Trials. The Eye Care Institute, which is our medical practice, began in 1984. We serve a metro area of about 1.4 million people, and we provide about 40,000, 45,000 ambulatory care episodes per year. 20 years ago, we expanded our medical practice, the Eye Care Institute, into an embedded clinical trials research site. As the research clinical trials site began to grow, we decided we needed to spin it out to give it its own identity as it added staff and has its own building. The clinical trials site has led to 15 FDA approvals. About 12 or 13 of them are drugs or therapeutics, and the rest are devices. This is very exciting for us. Butchertown Clinical Trials is a wholly owned subsidiary of the Eye Care Institute. It is a dedicated clinical research facility on our healthcare campus, which has about 5.5 acres. We've got 21,000 total square feet of space, and it has multiple features and amenities, which include 4 exam rooms, which are dedicated to ophthalmic clinical trials, including 4-meter exam lanes, exam rooms, and all of the digital technology that goes along with that. We also have 2 primary care medical exam rooms, in addition to a procedure room and an IP investigational product storage facility. We have multiple refrigeration systems, which are each monitored and alarmed. Our building is fully on a backup natural gas generator system, burglar alarms, fire alarms, smoke alarms, intrusion alarms, and a video camera system. Your IP is safe with us. Let me just speak for 1 minute about the medical examination rooms. Although we're going to be talking in today's seminar about conditions and indications within ophthalmology, which is most of what we do, we also have a family practice doctor with us, and she does clinical trials that relate to nutrition, diabetes, and more specifically type 2 diabetes that can be treated on an ambulatory basis. Other family practice trials, she can do headache or migraine trials. She can do pulmonary trials. She does has the capacity to do vaccine trials. In addition, collection trials we're happy to do as well. So ophthalmology and primary care and vaccines. And now I'm pleased to tell you about our presenter, Dr. John C. Meyer, MD. Dr. Meyer is an ophthalmologist, and he holds a fellowship in cornea and external diseases. Dr. Meyer completed his fellowship at Emory University in cornea and external diseases. He completed his medical school degree at St. Louis University School of Medicine, and he did his residency in the United States Navy, where he was at the very end of active duty in Operation Desert Storm. He has multiple interests in addition to eye surgery. He enjoys boating. He recently built a street rod. He has an extensive woodworking shop, and he has an even larger metalworking shop. An interesting gentleman, a great surgeon, and an all-around nice guy. I'm happy to present you with Dr. John Meyer.
Well, thanks, Mark. My name is John Meyer. Thanks for the introduction. The point of today, or I hope that I will be able to get you some information across to you, is about presbyopia, which is a problem that affects everybody who lives long enough. It's a problem that, it's not a life-changing problem, but it's certainly an annoying problem that everybody eventually gets to. The problem that this is that when you're young, you're able to change your focus from distance to near pretty much seamlessly, all the way from the end of your nose out until way off in the distance. And as time goes on, your ability to change your focus up close is limited. And every year that goes by, the distance that you can hold something away from your face and still see it clearly gets longer and longer and longer. This has been around forever, and there have been lots of ways that people have found or have tried to overcome this. So the treatment of presbyopia has been historically kind of limited over the past 20 years or so. We've only had a few things that actually can make your near vision functional throughout life as you get a little bit older. About 10 or 15 years ago, we started to develop new options that were not available to us before. And since then, the field has grown almost exponentially. This has become a big interest for lots of manufacturers and lots of pharmaceutical companies to find ways to improve near vision simply, so that people aren't dependent on the old ways that we have of treating presbyopia. So first off, what is presbyopia? And that is the age-related loss of ability to change focus from distance to near. Usually this becomes noticeable around age 40, but it starts from birth. At birth, your ability to accommodate or your ability to focus up close is the best it's ever going to be in your entire life. And every year after that, it starts to get a little bit worse. Once you get to be about age 40 is when, for most people, a comfortable working distance exceeds the length of their arms. And that's why you can see people at restaurants and at stores or out and about trying to read something, and it looks like they're trying to get as far away from it as they possibly can, because it does help that focus. This process continues until about age 60 or so, when all of your ability to focus up close at that point is pretty much lost, and you're going to stay where you are pretty much indefinitely after that. Accommodation is the term that we use to describe this ability to change focus. It requires contraction of a muscle within the eye to change the shape of the lens and increase its focusing power. This muscle is a circular muscle that goes all the way around the inside of the eye up near the front, and it attaches to the lens by a bunch of little tiny fibers called zonules. So when the muscle contracts, it pulls on those zonules and it pulls on the lens to change its shape. It's greatest early on in life. So young kids can look at something right at the end of their nose and they can see it clearly. As you get older, it starts to get farther away. And then you get to the point where about age 40 is when your arms get too short, and then things start to become difficult. So you can see in this chart a little description of the anatomy of the eye. On the far left, the cornea is this clear front cover of the eye. It forms a dome over the front of the eye. And then just inside of that is the iris, which has a hole in the middle, which is the pupil. And that's where light enters the eye. And it goes through the lens, and it's focused onto the retina. And the center part of the retina in the back, there's a little depression called the fovea. And that's this part of the eye where your sharpest and crispest reading vision is. When the eye accommodates, the muscle that you can see near the front, called the ciliary muscle, on the left, you can see that it's, it's sort of small-ish looking. And on the right is when that muscle is contracted and is sort of beefed up. And it pulls and relaxes on those fibers, and it allows the lens then to change shape. So it becomes thicker. And that allows light to focus more strongly onto the back of the eye. Now, there's lots of theories of accommodation. There's no uniformly accepted method of accommodation, but there are a few that are generally accepted, but they all basically rely on changing the shape of the lens inside the eye. And as time goes on, that lens becomes stiffer. It takes more muscular energy to contract the lens, and the lens does not change shape as much, so you can't focus as clear as time goes on. There are options to treat presbyopia. Probably one of the earliest options we had were glasses. Reading glasses have been around for a very long time. Ben Franklin developed bifocals, which were an adaptation of the currently available reading glasses to allow people to function and be productive at close. As time passes and this presbyopia worsens, the strength of your reading glasses will need to be increased. So starting out, the lowest power reading glasses often work well for most people, but then after a while, you have to start holding things farther away again, and then stronger glasses will be needed. And that will continue to progress until you get into your probably early 60s, when the strength of the reading glasses you have at that point is about the strongest you will ever need. This generates some other sort of logistical problems because no one works at the same distance all the time. You may need stronger glasses to be able to see things really close. So if you have a hobby, knitting, cross stitch, tying flies, repairing watches, those kind of things require you to get very close to your work. And the strength of reading glasses needed for that is going to be a lot higher than would be needed if you're going to read on a laptop, or if you're going to see on a desktop, or the dashboard on your car, or the food on your plate. Those things are far enough away that you don't need as strong a reading glass. So people often need multiple pairs depending on what their activities are at the time. The other problem is, with your reading glasses on, your up close vision is good, but your distance vision through those glasses is going to be bad. So you have to put them on, you have to take them off, you set them down, you don't have them when you need them, you can't remember where you put them. All of those things are common problems related to reading glasses, and everyone who's in reading glasses has experienced that. It's not life-changing, it's not a deal breaker, it doesn't prevent you from doing what you need to do, but it's an annoyance. And if there was something that could be done to try and minimize those annoyances, makes life a little bit easier. So one way of doing that is something called monovision. And we do this fairly commonly in people who are presbyopic who wear contact lenses. This involves focusing one eye for near and one eye for far, so that those near tasks, you will just look through that eye. The far tasks, you will look through the other eye. But at all times, the vision through one or the other of those eyes is not going to be focused. And your brain has got to develop the ability to ignore the image out of the eye that you're not looking through. Those people who can tolerate this and develop the ability to tolerate this love it. Not everybody can. And some people, this just makes them sort of seasick and out of balance all the time. So if you're one of those that monovision works well for, it's perfect. You can get by through most all of your day without glasses at all. But if you're one of those that it doesn't work for, then other options might be necessary. So about a third of the people love this. About a third of the people say, it's okay. And about a third of the people hate it. So we still haven't found the answer. Next option, or one other thing with this monovision, this can be achieved with contact lenses probably most commonly, but implant lenses used after cataract surgery can also be chosen to provide you with monovision focus, one near and one far. So that's an option that's available. Little different way of going about it with an implant lens, but we'll talk a little bit more about that a little bit later. bifocals, these have been around for a very long time also. And they solve the problem, or they minimize the problem of having to put the glasses on and off and on and off all the time. The top portion of the bifocal focus for distance, the bottom focus portion is focused for up close. And you can leave them on and do hands-free work at different distances. These work well also, but it's something you have to put on. It's a pair of glasses that's in front of your face all the time to be able to get you to function. If you're working in a warm room and you go outside in the cold, or you go out working outside in the cold and you come into a warm room, they fog up. They get in the way. If you're, working around things that are close to you and there's no room for your head and your face and your glasses all at the same time. All of those things are a little bit of an annoyance, but bifocals can solve the problem most or almost always. Implant lenses. These implant lenses are lenses that we use after cataract surgery. It can also be used in people who don't yet have cataracts, and in order to change their focus, in order to get them so they are less glasses dependent. But this requires a surgery. We remove the natural lens of the eye and replace it with an implant lens. And we choose the power of that lens to focus the eye, either for distance or for up close, or it's possible to use a multifocal implant lens that can get you to see distance and up close. Multifocal implant lenses have been available or been around for 20 years, probably. The original ones did not work really well. Newer versions provide good distance and good near vision. And there are also lenses now that are being developed that can provide good intermediate also. And these multifocal lenses that we have available now can get your vision as close to where it was when you were 18 as we have been ever been able to get. So it can give you a nice, almost seamless range of focus for all of those activities that you may need to do with both eyes working together. So the issues of monovision and using only one eye at a time are alleviated. It's not something that you have to put on. It's there all the time. You wake up in the morning and you go, and it's just there and it works. So this is another option. It's a surgical option, but it can accomplish that same task of getting you to be able to read better without having to depend on glasses. There are now trifocal intraocular lenses that are available. This is the newest type of lens that are available. It gives good intermediate vision, where before the bifocal lenses were able to do pretty well for distance and for up close. But in the middle, people found they had to lean in to see their monitor, and they had to sit back too far to see their monitor. So intermediate vision with these lenses is becoming much better. One thing that is unique to these is that pretty much everybody is going to get some glare and some halos with these. There are little rings around lights that you may see at night. Not enough that it is really incapacitating or disruptive, but it's something that most people notice, and their brains over time develop the ability to sort of ignore this. But the majority of patients who choose a multifocal or a trifocal contact or trifocal implant lens find that what little glare and halo they have is well worth the trade-off of not having to wear glasses. So those lenses work really well. Next, newest lens is the extended depth of focus lens. And this is a lens which is multifocal, but it has fewer side effects of glare and halo. So the quality of vision is crisper and sharper for distance. It works pretty well for the intermediate, but it may not be as good for very close work. So depending on your needs, one or the other of these lenses is going to be better, but all of them can kind of accomplish the same thing. Now, all of those things that we talked about, glasses, monovision, implant lenses, they all have, trade-offs. And every new advance that we're looking for is hopefully going to provide the same level of function with fewer trade-offs. Now, drug companies are looking at eye drops to provide near vision without changing your distance vision. So it's not a pair of glasses you have to put on, the quality of vision is good. There's no glare. There's no halos around lights at night. You're able to function without depending on devices to get you there. But this drop works by extending your depth of focus. There is one drop, it's called Vuity, which has been approved in the last few months or so. This is a clinical trial that we participated in a couple of years ago that has been approved by the FDA, is now on the market. It's a drop that you use once a day, and it can provide near vision for even up to 6 to 8 hours for most patients. The effect starts at about 1 hour, it peaks at about 3 hours, and by 4 to 6 hours, it starts to drop off. So your ability to hold things really close at that point starts to drop off. The intermediate vision is maintained for longer. So if you're doing a lot of desk work and monitor work, that intermediate vision should continue for even up to 6 to 8 hours, but it doesn't last all day. So next day, put another drop in, start over again. There are other companies that are working on these drops also. So Vuity is the first. There are 5 other companies that are conducting clinical trials that we're participating in, looking at either this same medicine or a different medicine in hopes that theirs are going to end up being the best. Likely within the next few years, several of these will be approved. The initial results that I've been able to look that all of these look like they are going to work. So we'll have many options in the future, lots of advantages of that. Everybody doesn't respond the same to each. And when there are more choices available on the market, usually the price goes down. So lots of advantages to drops and more to come. But we still do not have a way of preventing presbyopia. So this age-related loss of accommodation is still going on. All the things that we talked about are only ways that we have of overcoming the results. My feeling is that the key is going to be finding out why the lens changes, why it becomes stiffer, and finding a way to prevent that from happening. And then we don't have to worry about treating presbyopia because we will have cured presbyopia. Okay, now we're in the question and answer section. Our first question is from a small biotech company. And the question is, you stated you're enrolling for 5 clinical trials for presbyopia. How do you recruit enough subjects for 5 trials? Also, how do you decide when you are personally involved in too many trials at once? So first off, as far as recruiting, how do we recruit enough subjects for 5 trials? We have a pretty large database of patients who have participated in trials and who are interested in participating in more. So they are who we go to first. We also have a fairly nice presence of the clinical trial arm in our clinical practice. So the majority of our patients come from our clinical practice. So most of the trials that we have done for presbyopia are looking for only a handful of patients in each one. The good thing is those who qualify for one trial often will qualify for others. So we have patients who they finished one trial, 30 days later, they rolled into the next trial. So we've been able to keep up and meet enrollment fairly well by drawing from our own patient database, from our database of previous study patients, and by rolling patients over again. And also, how do I decide when I'm personally involved in too many trials at once? Really, that kind of depends on how quickly I can get home at the end of the day. Our scheduling department has done a great job of coordinating, but there is a lot of time in front of patients, and then there's a lot of time not in front of patients dealing with the paperwork. So we have several doctors. We have 3 other MDs who participate in clinical trials, and we have 2 optometrists who also participate in trials. And we sort of rotate the principal investigator and sub-investigator between them so that we can all help each other out. But if we are able to continue to recruit enough and we have enough technician staffing and rooms available, We have not yet run out of doctor or principal investigator capacity. But when it gets to the point where we are no longer able to see enough patients in our regular clinical practice, that is likely when we're going to have to either hire more doctors or turn down some trials. Next question is from a pharma company in Massachusetts. Said, you seem really busy in private practice and with multiple trials. Can you talk about how you divide your workday so patients can get the care they deserve while these trials get the attention they also need? Division of the day. Our schedulers do a really good job of knowing when these trial visits are. We generally know when the screening is done, what the visit schedule is going to be for that patient. So we can plan ahead. And some of these trials require only a small amount of time from me in the beginning of the exam and sometimes at the end of the exam. And those we can just work in through a regular day. Those that require more time, say maybe an hour's worth of face time with me, our schedulers are able to block well ahead of time to get my clinic patients off the schedule for those times, so that frees me up to do the clinical trials. We also do block enrollment, where we bring all of the trial patients in at the same time. And for those days, we just make sure that there are no clinic patients scheduled on those days, so I can dedicate 100% of my day to those trials. So basically, good scheduling department and planning ahead has allowed us to be able to do all of these things at the same time. And the last question comes from a CRO. I'd like to follow up on a question from the sponsor about recruitment goals. Do you personally oversee all data management activities at your facility? And if not, do you have an oversight system to ensure data integrity? So as principal investigator, I am responsible for everything involved in the conduct of the trial. So training, oversight, all of those things fall under my responsibility. We do get help from the sponsors providing training to our staff and our technicians. We have site initiation visits where they go through pretty much the same discussion for all trials based on, data collection, data integrity, following the protocol, all the requirements that we have after the study is completed. All of these things get repeated every time we start a new trial. So that gets reinforced with all of our staff. So data management activities, yes, I oversee those. We have 3 clinical coordinators, each of whom are responsible for 2 or 3 trials each. We have a clinical trial supervisor who is overseeing all of those 3. And then we have Mark Prussian, who's our administrator, who's overseeing all of that. In addition to that, we work with sponsors, or we work with CROs who will provide one more layer of oversight and inspection and review to make sure that what we are doing is following the protocol and that our data is transferred and entered correctly and in a timely fashion. And then we have the institutional review board, which is one other layer to make sure they make sure that we are following rules of good clinical practice. And then above them is even the FDA. And there are times where the FDA will come in and observe and monitor and inspect to make sure that we are following all the rules that we need. So we have several layers of oversight to ensure data integrity, make sure that patients and subjects are treated with the respect and the dignity that they deserve, and that we follow the GCP guidelines that are accepted throughout the world. So I think that's it for questions. I'm going to turn it back over to Mark. Thanks, everybody, and I appreciate your attendance.
Thank you for attending our webinar today. We hope you learned a lot. Feel free to contact us at info@eyecareinstitute.com or check us out on the web at butchertownclinicaltrials.com. Thank you, everyone, for listening to our presentation today.